Now, in my situation, the situation my family has been in, we've been subject to intense attempts at cancellation dozens of times. Some of them of ridiculous intensity and duration. And we've learned that if we had been careful, and so that's important, I do my best not to say things that I believe are false. And so generally, it's been very difficult for those who want to cancel me to actually point to something I said to manage the cancellation.
Clinical psychologist and public intellectual Dr. Jordan Peterson has opened up on the intense attempts at cancellation he and his family have been subject to. Now in my situation, the situation my family has been in, we've been subject to intense attempts at cancellation dozens of times, Dr. Peterson told Sky News Australia host Rita Pennai in a wide-ranging interview, some of them of ridiculous intensity and duration.
The truth will set you free. Well, true or false? You might say, well, if I say the truth, I'm going to get into trouble. Fair enough, but if you abide by the lie, you're also going to get into trouble. And so one of the things you can do instantly is disabuse yourself of the notion that there's a zero trouble pathway. It's like you're in trouble both ways, like real trouble. You get to pick your trouble. That's all you've got. You get to pick your trouble. And so that's been very helpful. That's a matter of stepping carefully. But we've also discovered that if we can tolerate the strain without an apology, let's say without backtracking, it will inevitably reverse. Not just not work, that's the Streisand effect, right? But reverse. So the people who've come after me most harshly in some sense, and it was very stressful and very high intensity dance, because if I would have said the wrong thing, all the moral virtue would have accrued to her and I would have been done. And so you might say, well, if you say what you have to say, and I would say, don't just shoot your mouth off incautiously. There's no sense getting fired stupidly and leaving your family to starve. You have to be strategic about these things. It's be a lifetime commitment, not a momentary whim that now you're going to, bumble out the truth. Might be a little late for that in your situation, right?
The most powerful public intellectual in the Western world has been named Jordan Peterson, a Canadian psychology professor. He is a supporter of the hero's journey, a notion from Jungian psychology in which a regular person responds to a call to adventure by venturing out into the world to struggle and suffer in order to return with increased self-awareness.
You have to decide in your life. You have to decide. Are you better served by the truth or by the lie of silence or deception? And those are your options. That's it. That's all you've got. And I believe that it isn't even so much that I believe that the truth will set you free, although I do. I know for certain that it's adherence to the lie that produces the totalitarian tyranny of hell. I know that for certain. The core of the totalitarian state is the lie. And then the degree to which you participate in that, with your silence or your outright falsehoods, is the degree to which you are an avatar of the spirit of the totalitarian tyranny. It's a terrible problem. So imagine you, okay, so the rule is you can't offend anyone, all right? Let's say you're speaking to one person, I can't offend you. All right, fair enough. What if I'm speaking to 10 people? Do I get to offend 1 in 10? How about 1 in 100? How about 1 in 1,000? You're going to come out on stage and you're going to say something important about something vital, and you're not going to offend 1 person in 1,000? Well, you can't say anything about anything important ever without offending probably the person you're talking to. Important speech about important issues, especially contentious issues, is instantly offensive. And that's, if you have any degree of insight at all, you see, well, that's something hellish. That thing that has dominion over you, that temptation to lie, that's the spirit that rules over hell. Well, you should be way more afraid of that. And I mean, infinitely more afraid of that. The truth might strip you bare, but if you fall under the dominion of the ruler of the pathway to hell, there is literally nothing worse than that. And you might say, well, that's hyperbole. It's like, really, it is, eh? It's 100 million dead under Mao. Hyperbole, eh? I don't think so.
The population uses a certain kind of linguistic approach. It's an appropriation of speech. There's no excuse for that. That never has happened once in the history of English common law, right? It's a barrier that we do not cross. Hate speech laws are bad enough. It's not like there's no hate speech. Like anyone with any sense knows that there's hate speech. Who's going to regulate it? Who's going to define it? And I know the answer to that. The last people in the world you would want to. And then we cross another barrier and we allow the government to compel speech for some hypothetically compassionate reason? No way. That's a really bad idea.
If you're being required to do things that make you weak and ashamed, then stop. Don't do them. Like one of the things I learned from Solzhenitsyn and Frankl was that systems go terribly out of control when people don't stop them when they're going mildly out of control. You know, and you might say, I should just keep my goddamn head down and shut up. It's like, maybe you should. Like, that's not bad advice. You know, you don't want to make unnecessary enemies, and you don't need any more trouble than you need. You're going to be sacrificing yourself to other people all the time. And there are people who will find that extraordinarily endearing. And it will be under some circumstances, but the problem is that you will sacrifice yourself. And so you will get taken advantage of continually by people who are looking for someone like you until you grow some teeth. And you'll think, no, that's the opposite of compassion. Being able to bite hard is the opposite of compassion, which it is. And so you'll have that pushed into the predator category. I'm not doing that. I'm not getting angry. I don't like conflict. It's like until you bring that out of the depths and put it on so you can use it, you're going to be in trouble. And that's kind of Nietzsche's idea of the revaluation of good and evil, right? You have a sense of what's good and a sense of what isn't with your conscience, but it's not very smart. It's got things in the wrong boxes. You know, and there's so much foolishness going on in the mid-level bureaucratic world now. That's where all the tyranny seems to be focused. And the reason that it multiplies is because sensible people say nothing when they should say something. And what's so strange about that is that there are way more sensible people than people who aren't sensible. They're just not as noisy. So what you'll turn out if, like, you know, so let's say something's bugging the hell out of you at work. Well, then you have to prepare to find another job. That's the first thing you have to do. I don't think that you should find another job, but you should prepare to find another job. And if possible, you should prepare to find a better job. Because if you can't tell someone to go to hell, then you can't negotiate with them. And a lot of the things that, even nature itself, a lot of the things that you accept as untrammeled goods, like compassion, let's say, have a very dark side, first of all. And second, are not enough to get you through life. You need the opposite virtues too. And so you have to develop them. So you gotta set yourself up so you've got some mobility. And actually, that's a really good principle in your life, period. You should set yourself up so that you have a lateral move at hand. And so I would say you have an ethical responsibility as a citizen to forthrightly confront creeping tyranny no matter where it occurs. And part of what we're learning, I would say, from these stories, if we're learning anything at all, is that if you're aimed at the good, which is a question you really got to ask yourself, you know, if you're genuinely aimed at the good, then take heart, because you're a lot stronger than you think. And you know, better to argue than to fight, unless you want to fight. And some people want to fight, and I can understand why, but I wouldn't recommend it, because that doesn't lead good places. It really doesn't lead good places. So I'd say you have a duty. Maybe that's why you stand up. It's because you have a goddamn duty to stand up and just say what you have to say. You don't even have to be trying to make a point exactly or trying to get something done. It's like, this is how it looks to me.
If you enjoy videos like this, make sure to click the bell icon and subscribe to our channel. What are your thoughts on this? Let us know in the comments below, and we'll see you next time on the channel. Bye.